Thanks for dropping in. Valentine's Day is only a few weeks away, so that means it's time to design another holiday-themed 3D printed container. While I could take the existing twist lock box design and smush it into a heart shape, I think it's time to try something new. And here it is, a container I'm calling the Lovely Puzzle Box. While this is a puzzle, it's a really easy one, so it works well as a gift box, not a torture device. To open the box, rotate either side to create a heart. The box can now separate into two containers. But don't worry, each of these can now transform into a heart as they open up. I'm sure there's a deep, complicated metaphor here somewhere, but I just think it's neat. Magnets between the two halves of the box give the initial step a very satisfying snap. It's almost a fidget toy. The box is also very sturdy. Short of resorting to some extreme force, the lids will not come off until you've completed the puzzle. If you follow my Twitter feed, you know this design went through quite a few iterations. An early prototype of this box would start out in a broken state. Neither half of this box would open on its own, but when you bring them together, each side would act as a magnetic key for the other. I like this idea, but in practice, opening the prototype was a pain and rather unreliable. You could also open each box individually with a sudden violent fling. Not the romantic message I was looking for. But that's okay, because design is all about iteration. Test subjects, family members, playing around with a prototype enjoyed mindlessly twisting it around. Observations like this are gold for the design process. If someone wants to interact with your design in an unexpected yet positive way, use it. This led to a series of follow-up prototypes exploring that twisting move and how the state could lock or unlock a lid. The final design features this oddly shaped key, which can be rotated in either direction as much as you want, but it will only release after a 180-degree turn. The box lids rotate to open, but each lid rotates only in one direction, the direction that happens to be blocked by the other side of the box. And finally, to fit the holiday theme, the box lid only opens up far enough to create a new heart shape. As always, I focused on making this design as easy to print as I could. There aren't many overhangs, and the few that are there are limited to 45 degrees, so the parts for this design can be printed without supports. The keyhole in this right frame is extremely important and must be a very clean print. So to make things easier, I've created a pre-supported version of just that part, and it adds a small removable plug that should just pop out after printing. While not absolutely necessary, I printed all the lids with a brim, just to make sure they didn't curl up off the bed. If you're less paranoid about that than me, or have excellent bed adhesion, no brim is needed. Finally, here's an example of a print I rejected. Yes, I get bad prints all the time, but I usually only save the good ones for these videos. Note how the sidewall looks pretty inconsistent? This is an issue I find with thin parts that are printed with so many perimeter lines, also known as shells, that they're entirely solid. Even the slightest over-extrusion really jumps out at you because every perimeter line adds to the problem. This print, on the other hand, uses only 2 perimeter lines, so the inconsistency is far less noticeable, even with white filament, which brings out all the flaws in prints. Okay, let's get to assembling. For this box, I'm going pastels, 2 pink lids, 2 purple bottoms, and a white frame. At this point, you have a choice to make. The box can either be configured to separate when it's a heart, or if you prefer, the heart could be the lock state, and it will only separate after being twisted. What determines that is this tiny key. There's a small flat section on the key to help you align it properly. There are 2 possible keys you can print, key.stl and alternate key.stl. The only difference between the parts is where that flattened side is positioned. Use key.stl if you want the box to separate when it's shaped like a heart. Use alternate key.stl if you want the box to separate when it's shaped like a rectangle. I'm going to use the default key for this. Let's attach the key onto the left frame. You can either glue it or use a short M3 bolt. Anything between 8 and 12 millimeters will work. The bolt is probably the better option because it gives the connection a lot more strength. Next, we're going to glue in some magnets. These are optional, but they give the design a nice fidget feel. Note that there are more magnet holes than we actually need. Each frame has magnet holes on the side that support either large 6x3mm cylinder magnets or smaller 3x3mm cylinder magnets. These are the magnets that help align the initial rotation step. Both the top and bottom of the frame have holes for 3x3mm magnets. These snap the lid into place, which in turn also has 2 magnet holes of the same size. But why are there holes both on the top and the bottom of the frame? Well, this is to support placing the lid on the bottom instead of the top, if that's what you prefer to do. With so many options, it's easy to accidentally add magnets to the wrong holes or place them in the wrong orientation. So just take your time and plan out what goes where before you glue. Starting with the side magnets, I'm making sure that both magnets on each side have the same orientation. They both need to provide an attracting force to the magnet on the other half of the box, regardless of which magnet is lined up to which other magnet. Next comes the magnets on the top of the frame. Make sure the frames are oriented in the direction you want them to be when unlocked. Otherwise, half your magnets will be on the wrong side. And yes, I did waste multiple magnets messing this up. While we're at it, glue in the lid magnets, making sure to get the correct orientation so the lid and the frame will be pulled together. Once the glue dries, it's time to add the lids. Each lid requires one M3 bolt, between 8 and 12 millimeters long. I know it's best to use as little hardware as possible for these projects, but if I can, I'll try to reuse the same bolt and magnet sizes to make that less of a problem. The bolts screw in from the bottom of the frame. Just keep on tightening until the lid feels secure, but not so tight that it won't rotate on its hinge. The final step is to glue the bottom on each half of the box. This is going to make the hinge bolts inaccessible, so make sure they're as tight as you want them. The bottom doesn't require a ton of superglue, so for the thin portion of the frame wall, I just add a couple of very small drops. And that's it. Hopefully you can now assemble the two halves, and all the magnets and parts will be in the direction you want. I look forward to seeing what people do with this design. The lid is intentionally flat and plain, so there's a lot of space to customize your box. I also enjoyed playing around with some color schemes. Iron Man, Nintendo Switch, classic Valentine's Day pastels, and Pokeball red, white, and black. All equally romantic themes. If you decide to print and post a copy, I'd love to see what you make. So until next time, happy printing and thanks for stopping by.